It's absolutely a pleasure just to finally connect up with you. It's always a dream come true. It's insane.
Right on, man.
Look, so all I'm going to do is a little bit of an intro for the show, myself,
Okay.
and then I'll introduce you, and then we could just get into the interview, and hopefully you've got half an hour to sort of spend with me. If there's any
Yeah.
topics that are taboo, just let me know. I've got a whole bunch
Nah,
of...
not really.
That's awesome. I've got a couple of questions, just, basic sort of stuff into all the work that you've done. I've even got, look at this. I had to pull them out of my collection. I've got the original...
Yeah, there you go.
and a class, that's seriously one of the records right there that got me into heavy metal music. Like, coming from a classical guitar background,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and so yeah, amazing to be able to show you those two things.
Right on, man. Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
cool.
Well, look, I'm gonna do the intro, and we'll just get right into it.
Okay.
Awesome. Hello and welcome to the We Only Do One Take podcast. It's the only podcast in the world that is a complete shit show. My name is Turch, and with me today is a very, very special guest. Someone who introduced me to a whole new world of music. For me, it's a huge celebrity, and I hope for you after this recording, it will be for you too. He's an incredible vocalist, a lyricist, a songwriter, the Stockyard Skinners' own Maximum Bob. Thank you so much for coming on the show
Hi,
with
Turch.
me today.
All right on, man.
Now,
So you're Turch.
yeah,
I like that name, by the way.
It's Turch, yeah. So it's a shortened version of my very long Italian surname, and that's what I've
there
been
you
my whole life.
Right on, man.
Yeah. So look, thank you once again. It's been a very long time in the making to get you on the show, and I think I've
Yeah.
been following your music for a very, very long time. Like I said in the very quick introduction there, you helped me get into the heavier style of music with heavier vocals and guitar playing and a whole bunch of really cool stuff. You've worked with a whole bunch of people. A lot of people may not know who you are as much as I know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I would give them a quick introduction and then we can keep going with this lovely interview.
Right on.
So, you're the lead singer of, or back in the day, the Dally Creeps, and now your current version of the Dally Creeps, called the Stockyard Skinners, I'm guessing is sort of the new version of it?
Yeah, it's about half and half right now, although the new songs are in development, and we're actually really close with 4 of them.
That's
They
amazing.
should be. We're gonna play them live next, probably in the next month.
That's
So
awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So you've had the opportunity back in the day to work with not only Buckethead and Pinchface and stuff like that, but Mike Patton from Faith No More and a Mr. Bungle album, which is
yeah,
insanity.
that was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
it was pretty awesome.
I'm definitely going to
It was
talk to you
awesome.
about that. You've
All
worked
right.
with Serge Tankian from System of a Down on the Enter the Chicken album with Buckethead and
Yeah.
Friends. You've even been
Yep.
able to on a Praxis album,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is amazing as well. And I've got that on
Yeah.
vinyl somewhere as well. And
There you go.
Yeah. And you recently put together the Stockyard Skinners and released a whole bunch of songs, like you said, coming up with their new album. I'm hoping that I didn't miss anything, but if I did, I hope I get to talk about it with you while we do this interview.
That's pretty much it, other than my early life that no one knows about. But yeah,
Well,
yeah, it's
Well, how about we start with there then? What got you into music and what got you into singing?
Well, when I was a kid, I was really into the Beatles. I picked up anything that my aunts and uncles had vinyl, and so I would listen to this and that. And then I shifted off to Queen and Cheap Trick, and so it kind of got me more into like a little more, strange. I mean, in retrospect, it's nothing now, but and then I discovered punk.
Yeah.
And so once I got into punk. Living in LA, we were right in the heart of Black Flag and everything else. And I went to dozens and dozens and dozens of shows when I was 14, 15, 16. In fact, sometimes I can't tell people that I went to a show, my kids, when they're like, well, that show was in San Francisco. How old were you? Oh, I was like 14. Well, how'd you do that? Oh, I told my mom I was spending the night at someone's house, in town. then we get in the car and just drive wherever we want. But so I was into hard and edgy. I was definitely but also with words that sent a message. I wasn't as into the stuff that wasn't political. Like I appreciated some of the like the Germs and I don't know, later on Misfits and stuff like that. But mostly I liked words to matter more at least that was my perspective.
Yeah.
Saying something, being pissed off about politics and the way things were. And, anyways, a good thing we're not in punk bands now because we probably we wouldn't even know where to start. But
especially in your political climate down in the USA, in comparison to Australia, look, at least you got the consistency of a single president there. I think in the last 5 or 6 years in Australian politics, we've had about 5 or 6 prime ministers.
yeah, that's right.
And it's been, but nothing changes for us. It's almost like the same parties in politics, but it's very strange like that.
yeah, definitely. And I think that, so I went to Damien High School, which is also where Brian Carroll went, Buckethead.
Yeah.
And so when we first kind of met, started hanging out, we were introduced by some other people who knew both of us. And so he was listening to, more rock and metal. I mean, at that point, he'd already started to really deconstruct some pretty heavy duty players. And so then I come into his world and I'm this crazy punker, right? And there weren't a lot of them at Damien. And I came from Chino and I was crazy, right? And I would get up in front of all these people and tell jokes and just, take like an audience in the quad. And so we just started hitting it off. And then the more I was, hanging out with him, I think I infected him with the crazy, but then he infected me with, appreciating precision and more of the skilled playing. But it was a mind blower, right? I mean, he was at that point, there really was no reference for how he played. I'd say, I watched him dissect players and he would eat what he needed from them. And I can't put it in any other way.
No, it's amazing.
I mean, he could find someone like, even at that point, Paul Gilbert was at first daunting. And then within a couple months, 3 months, no, and Yngwie, that took seemed like a month.
I can see.
He listened to him.
I've listened to so much of his stuff, and I still collect his stuff. I like he's one of the guys with yourself got me into that heavier style of music, mainly because I came from a classical guitar background, and I love the precision in his playing, and you said, the contrast with your insane vocal lines and melody lines, for me it was a combination I never thought was possible within the music space. But I can hear there's a little bit of Malmsteen, there's a little bit of Queen, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, even with his own playing. And I feel like you two just complemented each other in a way that I haven't seen I hadn't seen as of yet within my musical experience.
Yeah, I think in the early years, the first year and a half of playing, that I helped. Like if we went in some of the biggest dives, a freaking hamburger. We played it at a Straw Hat Pizza, and I busted through the stage, no less. And they had a little 2-foot high stage made of plywood, and we're raging in this pizza parlor. People are sitting at their tables eating pizza and drinking beer, and just can't even understand what the hell is going on. Like we made no sense. We didn't make sense to anybody in Southern California, and it was so out of left field. And people would approach me and say, "Oh, you're really into Captain Beefheart," or "Oh, you're really into Zappa." Frankly, and this is the God's honest truth, at that point in time, I had never even heard of those bands. I didn't grow. I mean, I knew who Zappa was, but I didn't ever listen to Captain Beefheart. I didn't listen to any. I mean, it was like, "Oh, really? I'll check them out to see why you think that." But I was just coming from here.
It's absolutely insane to hear that, because at the same time I was getting into your stuff, I was also listening to Frank Zappa and Beefheart, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I can hear lots of similarities.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciated that later when I listened. Like, oh yeah, I could see where people would see that. And Zappa was, I knew about him because my aunts and uncles some of them listened, or they would just talk about him because he was so, he was a little bit of a troublemaker and such a spearhead, which was great. But yeah, I don't know. So here we are. We're kind of playing this crazy music, but then he's really super shy, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have that stage thing yet, and
No.
then I had this punk rock. I don't give a damn. I'll go up. I'll make a fool of myself. So it's almost like I'll take the damage, and then you can just learn to handle the stage. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so we slowly developed, and within a year, he was he was fine. Like I mean, yeah, he still wanted to kind of be behind the persona, which is cool. It was even that freaked people out, and people couldn't understand why someone who was as good as he was didn't want notoriety, didn't want you to see his face and to praise him, and and so he was always such a atypical sort of persona that I mean, everybody who went into metal and rock, almost all of them were doing it because they wanted something, right? And it was like with him, he didn't really want anything. He just wanted to get off and have fun, and of course, and be good at what he's doing. But and it just, if we fed off of each other, and I'll be honest, the best thing about all those early years is we'd be up on stage, and you can't see his face.
Mm.
And if you know him well enough, you'd learn to read his body language.
Mm.
So I know when I'm doing something crazy and I'd look over, he's laughing, right? Because he's like shaking. And then if I'm close to him, I totally hear him laughing. And that was the whole gist of our band was, how do we all make each other freak out? Like, I didn't really give a shit what the audience thought.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked it. They started to like it. But I didn't, it was all about just us and like having fun. And then, but because we were so, I guess, real in our unrealness, that people started to really respond, especially once we went to the Bay Area. I mean,
Yeah.
that was,
And I think
yeah,
that's
that
where
was
a lot of those videos come from in the Young Buckethead DVDs. And I was able to import some of those into this country, which is sometimes harder to get in than you might think.
oh yeah.
And looking at some of those, and you're absolutely right. There are some videos, and I'm assuming some of those videos come from that Bay Area when you started doing gigs there, like with a bit more, I would say high-profile gigs, but a bit more,
Yeah.
bigger shows and stuff like that. And you can see, you're doing something on stage, and then Pinchface on drums is doing something,
Yeah.
and then Buckethead, you can sort of see him sort of laughing underneath or doing something that's triggering yourself, triggering your
Yeah.
bassist at the time, and it's just this magic of musical unity to create something insane on stage. If you had to try to explain it, especially me trying to explain it to my parents, it's like, look at these crazy people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my dad
It wasn't an easily pegged discussion, and then of course you had to explain why you wanted to listen to it.
Yeah.
In fact, I was thinking when you said that the exposure to the lyrics, like, of course some of them were about some horror type of topics, but then the cow stuff. I mean, I just have this because I grew up in a cow town, right? Chino, California has massive dairies, and so cows were sort of a part of my life, but I didn't work on a dairy or a farm.
Yeah.
But then, and like we would drive up north and we'd pass all the really big industrial dairies, and like the time that we heard this crazy sound out the window when we were driving with the window open, and I just immediately said, "Oh, you know what that was?" And they're like, "No, what the hell was that?" And I'm like, "Oh man, that's the whistling banshee of the shit-yard." And they're like, "What?" And I just came up with it on the spot, like the story about this is a true story. Cows get baling wire caught in their stomachs from when they're eating hay. They swallow pieces of wire, and so after a while they get balled up, sort of with this wire. So a guy's got to shove his hand up their ass with a big magnet and try to pull it on out. And that's a true story. That's true. So I have this vision in my head that this guy puts his hand in, but this cow is sort of supernatural or just really crazy big, and he gets sucked in. And so his head gets sucked up the cow's ass, and then he chokes to death. And so this sound you're hearing is his ghost, and he's the whistling banshee of the shit-yard. And so we did that was a song. It never became on a record, but it was always an interlude that we did live, and it's still one of my favorite things ever.
That's amazing.
So it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think I got the first two Dally Creeps demo tracks, which are scattered around the internet and very hard to find these days, especially without, I think torrents are sort of dying off as a sort of thing with the internet changing in the way it is. But that's how I initially got it. And yeah, it's so raw, and the stories that you tell and the lyrics behind it with the insane music happening behind it does tell a story. I remember the first time listening to Boom Shikha and going, Jesus Christ, like, wow, that was, the music was
what
insane.
Is that?
The music was insane. It's, it's about cows, like, continuing on that sort of theme. And the whole story, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is about a slaughterhouse and just shipping meat off to McDonald's, basically.
Yeah.
But the imagery and that you put into the mind, and I think lots of comparisons have been made with you and like the first what's it called, Texas Chainsaw Massacre with that crazy guy and stuff like that. And I think at the same time, I think I just watched that for the first time, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the new one's not as good. And I could see the parallels and I could see that imagery, and it was absolutely fascinating to sort of see that in a song.
I'll be the first one to admit that, especially Bill Moseley. I mean, he had a lot of influence on us. Just not necessarily so much of his content, but just his delivery and his that very fast sort of staccato way that he would speak. I don't know. It was cool, And so he rubbed off on us, and I mean, it's no mystery, but Bucket is the world's, I swear, foremost expert on horror movies. I mean, I'll tell you this. I messed him up maybe with Punk, and he was tripping out on a little of the intensity. But then I'd go to his house, and he'd pull out the craziest movies that were like, back then it was harder to get that stuff too. It wasn't, you couldn't just download it on the internet. And, Cannibal Holocaust and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, like, why are we watching this? But then on the outside, in the band, I was supposed to be the one that was all crazy and about killing people, right? But behind the scenes, he was way more into that stuff than I was. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, man.
It's funny. My friend introduced me to Cannibal Holocaust, the film, and then he's like, we watched it, and afterward he goes, so do you want to play the song? Like, he's a guitar player. He's like, do you want to play the intro music? I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's the most beautiful, calm melody.
It is.
And then it goes to this insane film, which is insane. And gory and almost seems too real to be a film, but you're absolutely right.
It's kind of goner. So
you're playing all these shows, and how do you connect up with the guys from, I guess at this point in time, it was Mike Patton and Mr. Bungle at that point in time? How did you connect up with them? Oh,
back then it was Kristen Yee was their manager, and she obviously is Brain's cousin. And so I think Bucket had already been talking to Brain, and he met Les at early on at NAMM show down here. And so he started getting kind of this was before we even moved up there.
I was going to say, this is like we're talking like early 90s at this stage?
Yeah, probably 90.
Yeah.
Probably 90. Yeah, early 90. So then he sent our demo tape up to her, and apparently like the Bungle guys all just freaked out because no one had heard us, so they were like, oh my god, get those guys to come play with us. And so then we went, and honestly they were all really rad dudes. I mean, they really are. They were super ridiculously creative, and but I hung out a lot with Trey during the recording of the album, and like we would sit at different fur studios, and I was ridiculously good at Tetris, the original.
Yeah.
And so I would literally have like 5 or 6 or 7 people sitting around just watching me play. And I remember this time, like, they watched me and I was on like level 26, and I actually rolled like 99 lines at 26 before I turned to 27. If you know anything about Tetris, that's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, next level Tetris right there.
Yeah, I looked at Nintendo's magazine one time with the score list, and I'm like, shit, I would have been in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that. I'm like, wow, I was good. But anyways, Trey just said, dude, I get it now. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you guys are the same person. It's just that your brain is really smart in some ways, and his brain is, like we were both kind of like, kind of freaks. And that's why I was always into improv, because especially back then, you got that young energy flowing through you, and I could just come up with anything, any minute, like some new craziness is going to come out. And then with him, it's that's what it was here, like musically.
Yeah.
And so it was just a match, it was good. And I like being in this band I'm in now with the Stockyard Skinners. I'm playing with this 19-year-old who's just ridiculous, Ryan Feliciano. And
I've seen some videos of him on your Instagram and some of the stuff, and he can just play. He can play.
He's only 19.
Like,
yeah, he's only 19. And you know what I'm impressed by he's, we started doing the Deli Creep songs, and it's really hard to play a legend, and to try to do. And so he's adapting a little bit and improvising and making it more his.
Yeah.
And he's finding some rhythm changes here and there that and it helps me because I feel like I don't want to be in a cover band of my own band. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to be in a live thing, which is alive now. But that being said, like it gives me an appreciation for how much of an effect Buckethead has had on this entire young generation of guitar players, because he's a monster, and like he's a monster in ways that, unfortunately, and I really don't mean this as though there's something I want out of it, but I wish he'd written more music for singers, because the dude, besides being killer at all this, that's wonderful, but his riff writing and his feel for just song, like I went in when he was doing the Guns N' Roses stuff, and heard one of the songs that got they didn't use on Chinese Democracy. I'm telling you right now, flat out, it's one of the baddest songs I've ever heard in my life, regardless, all bands. I was like, totally like, dude. And when he told me, yeah, they're not going to use it, I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Like, this is the baddest music I've ever heard. And so, like, I kind of wish he'd been in more bands, just to be like, because I love song, man. I grew up Queen, right? Like I come from, how do you make the singer? How do you make the song? And anyways, I just think, and so this kid, he's got the sky's the limit for him, and but I'm happy to get to sing the songs. I love some of them.
They're amazing.
They're a part of me. Yeah, and I still feel it. Like I get up on stage. In fact, our last show, I will say, even though there weren't that many people there, we don't have a following in LA yet. But I'm telling you, like it started to be like I really felt like I was where I was back then. Like my brain turned off. Like I was no longer conscious. I just left the building, right? And I'm in my place wwhere I'm going crazy. And
like I'm an accountant by day. I know I look like one. But I get to play music at nighttime, and I'm lucky enough that my partner plays, and I've got a whole bunch of, all my close friends sort of play music and this and that. And you're absolutely right. You go home from your day job, whatever that is, and you can be sitting in front of a computer working on numbers all day. You come home and turn on an amp and just crank the crap out of it and just play a couple of riffs, and suddenly like you're in that happy place. It might even be your home at a mate's place, or if you have the opportunity to play on stage. Even if I've been playing in a cover band just to keep me going, but even playing that, I hate playing Bon Jovi as much as I hate playing Bon Jovi songs. The ability to go, you know what? Everyone in the room is enjoying Living on a Prayer for the 4 millionth time. That's what I'm here to do, and it's the best part of playing music. You're just seeing one or two people go absolutely nuts in a crowd. That's all you need sometimes.
It's true though, and what is, Budweiser's the number one beer in America. There's no sense of that either. Like sometimes what's popular, it's a mystery to me, but like music has a certain, we've been joking about, there's all these memes with Tool and when, the Tool album coming out. And so people are, joking about this and that and time signatures and all that. And I'm like, well, like, okay, they're great, but some people have a point in that sometimes you want the resolutions to fall where they fall naturally, where you feel, we feel the way music creates tension and then resolves. And then when you leave it on whatever note that didn't resolve so that it takes you somewhere else. But all those things are almost in our flesh, the way we expect them or we hear them, which on the flip side, when you can do it where it makes no sense, and yet then you want to listen to it again. Like I really think some of the Deli Creep songs, as we're breaking them down when we're rehearsing them, it's like you start thinking, man, I don't know how he thought that structure. Like what, it doesn't make, like some of the songs make no sense. But then once you've heard the whole song, you go, wow, yeah, that was cool. All right. And then you want to hear it again so you can figure out what the hell, like Boom Chicka. Boom
Yeah,
Chicka is a really good example. That
yeah,
song
yeah.
is really, it's
It
strange,
seems
the
like it's like
whole
four
structure.
songs mashed into one that somehow
Yeah,
syncs
yeah,
together with, and it's amazing like that. I love it. It's
yeah.
always Chores is a bit like that as well. I'm just pulling up the record here, but Chores is a
Oh,
bit like
yeah.
that, and every time I try and work out how to play that, I don't even know where to begin. Um, it's songs like that just sort of stick with you though, because it's got this atonality to it, but there's a melody hidden in there, and it's that almost subconscious level of melody writing that you're looking
Yeah,
for within music. And maybe it's because I've had the opportunity to play so much music, I'm sure some people who they're not going to be into that at all, like with a pop, maybe
right.
with a pop sensibility. But for someone like myself and my friends who like this sort of insane sort of fun, you know try your best to freak each other out sort of music,
Yeah,
that's where it really really shines.
yeah. I mean, whatever makes you feel good is what works. And by the way, I wanted to just talk because you said something about lyrics, and I
Yeah.
was remembering about how I would go off on a diatribe about mad cow disease every now and then on stage with Buckethead with Deli Creeps. Well, so in the new band, we're doing a song called Spongiform, where I've taken that idea and then filled it out, and so that song is going to be really whacked. It's
Mm,
basically about that you're becoming a different person inside. Because if you know anything about mad cow disease,
mm.
people hear voices, and then I mean, it's bad. So, but bad is sometimes a great
Yeah.
subject matter for a great song. So,
Well,
some of the new stuff is going to be whacked. That's all I'm going to
well.
say.
If I can make one request as a guy just sitting in his home office here in Australia, one of the songs when you talked about lyrics, one of the songs that always gets me, and I think is one of the most beautiful Deli Creep songs, and this was off the album, 2006 or 2005, whenever you released that one there, is Time.
Right,
And I never,
right.
like, at the beginning, I'm like, yeah, it's such a simple song and it's beautiful and the guitar solo is fantastic. But the lyrics you wrote for that song there, and even the melody line, which I think you almost put on a new style of a new vocal
Yeah,
performance on that song as well. The more I listen back to it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, the lyrics are just absolutely phenomenal. And that, one of the songs that really, that's one of the songs you can show your family members to get them into the
yeah,
band as well, which is sort
yeah,
of it's a double. It's a double. You got to do both. But Time, absolutely fantastic song off that record. And I think
yeah.
it almost a little bit of a departure from like the insanity that yourself and Buckethead would write
I,
together.
I think that was a right from the beginning. We actually said like we should write this just like write a song that's total like a total normal
Yeah,
song and make it like it really matters and it does matter. I mean
yeah,
it wasn't when I originally thought about it. I just sat down and wrote some words and then it started to come and it was like, oh, I mean these things, and it's weird. It's almost like I wrote it when I was 21 or no 20, whatever it was.
yeah.
And now that I'm older, I'm like, shit, that song means way more to me now than it did then when I understand what I wrote.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I was looking into the future, but it was funny. It was always that thing where people were like, wait a second, wait. He just sang a song about dressing out the neighbors because he's sick of doing chores, and now he's singing about like this really meaningful, deep, and that's what I wanted. Like I wanted people to go, what is going on, And when it was live, I mean, even now, I still think that's a head scratcher because the one thing I've noticed in the last few shows is that chores is when I really start to go off the rocker a little bit,
Mm,
and I think that I'm trying to really focus on enunciation so that people can definitely get what I'm saying. They might not understand it real time,
yeah.
but then when we get to time, it's like, well, why is he being so nice all of a sudden? He was just all mad a minute ago. He's mad and I'm flailing around and I'm edgy and mad and then by the time we get to Can I Have a Ride, I've gone completely off, the rails and so then I can just completely just destroy on that song, and I always feel like that's how we used to start with that song all the time, but now I feel like it's a good way to end because it's
Mm.
just madness.
Peak,
Yeah.
that peak of like
Yeah,
that
it's a good
end
peak.
of the, you try to take. It's something that's hard to describe to non-musicians. I think when you write a set list, you're trying to take the audience on a journey. It has to be that ebb and flow of the songs and
Yeah.
the way that you're playing music, you're singing this and that, and you want to be able to pull back a little bit to be able to give your voice a quick break so the next part's bigger. Which is always which is something I never realized until my partner was like, who's a vocalist, is like, I can't sing these two songs back to back, I will die.
I've totally said that. And yes, it's brutal sometimes.
And it's changed the way I've thought about set lists and this and that. I always describe it and like Star Wars, you start off pretty big, and then you go dip down in the story. You set up Luke, and then it builds up again when they save the princess, and it dips down when they do this. And right at the end, that's when you blow up the Death Star and you leave them on that climactic ending. And that's how I sort of think of it.
Yeah.
And I think most people have seen the original Star Wars at this point in time. So I think for me as an analogy, it should be pretty spot on.
I remember I don't know, like the energy level that it takes is in fact, after our last show, I went to the edge, and I know where my edge is growing, like, because I've been playing more, and so I'm starting to be able to handle the antics and stuff. But then I was like, you know what, that's it. I gotta get in better shape. And so since then I've been totally, like, I've changed my diet. That's and fantastic. So yeah, so I've already lost like probably 35 pounds since our last show.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah. So by the time we play again, I'm not gonna fall down dead, which is good. Because it was like, whoa, man, I'm seeing like little sparklers going off. I'm like, oh, that's not good. I think that's oxygen depletion. But yeah. But anyways, yeah. I mean, it's so much fun to leave them with a a nice baseball bat. Yeah. I'll tell you too. Like, this happened back in the day. Like when we played with Guar. Guar's got a big, huge built-in audience. The Deli Creeps. And, they're there to see Guar. They don't give a shit about the opener, right? Yeah. And so we played a couple pretty big shows with them. And the second one, it was like, when you first come out, they're down in the front, like, screw you. And, bleh, they don't like you. They don't like you. And but by the third song, it was like it starts to change, right? Yeah. And then by the last song, you get a big yeah. And that's it, man. Like, if you can do that every time, like, there you go, just change the room.
Changing a whole audience to from not wanting to listen to you at all to loving you and wanting to buy that, the record at the merch stand. That's a really big part of music these days.
Yeah, you got to sell them, but I'm lucky the guys that I'm playing with now are all they're all good. I mean, Renee is the drummer. He played with Bucket and I before. Right. He played with Bucket by just them, and then I was in a little project that we played a few shows.
Is that the Hook and Pull?
Yeah, Hook and Pull gang. Yeah. So he's a badass. Like, he Bucket gave him Cuckoo Clocks from Hell and said, do you think you could learn this? And he came back like in, I don't know what it was, a week or two, and he played the first 3 songs. He could play them on drums.
Yeah, amazing.
And and later on we talked about that, and I just said, that's not. I go, that's not real. I go, you're playing drums that were put together by Dan Monty, and how did you do that? Because some of the drumming on there is insanity. It's like, whoa. So that guy, like, he definitely proved his mettle at that point. And then we saw each other actually at a Buckethead show. We ran into each other in LA a couple years ago, and he said, what, we should do something. And I'm like, well, let's do it. So that's where that started. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you just said we did the Hook and Pull gang. I think that was like mid 2000s, give or take, and stuff like that. While Buckethead was doing the Guns N' Roses thing, which is it's amazing to think that he was like recording with Guns N' Roses, playing with recording with Guns N' Roses, playing shows and stuff like that, and then just coming to play guitar and stuff with you guys, and at the same point in time recording some of his best albums, like Pepper's Ghost, The Asylum of Glass, and all those albums are just riff mastery when it comes to that
he was on fire around that time. And dude, I don't even think there's any question. He's the riff king on earth. I love guitar. I'm into everybody. I've listened to all the great guitar players, and I'm learning a lot more about some of the modern stuff with the gent and all that. But if you're talking about riffs and especially rhythmic and like just it, dude, his pocket, so to speak, on the guitar is unparalleled. And that's why I like when I talk about the whole thing with singers, it's like, dude, man, you're I'm like you're making all these albums, like make some with some vocalists, because those freaking riffs and like just having these and actually this kid that I'm playing with, it's like, dude, they're swear to God, they're cut from the same cloth. It's like they can just spew out like 50 riffs, and then and I mean, every time I see this kid, he's got a new, not one, he's got 10, like, oh, and I came up with this. But that's how it was with Bucket. Bucket would literally just sit there, and it was like a sprinkler. Like it was just going, oh, that was a song. There's 20 more riffs. I mean, it was wild. And so I would have to like sort of like rein him in a little and go, okay, wait. Put that first one together with that one. And then, and it was like, okay, could you combine those and then make a chorus? And so it was like having your own computer that was spitting out music. So
I guess that's how it was. Yeah. I guess that's how it was during the Enter the Chicken recording, because I feel like getting Serge Tankian on a project with a myriad of other vocalists, including yourself. I mean, we're talking that for me, an album with some of the tastiest riffs I've ever heard and some of the most fantastic vocalists and vocal performances I've heard. At that point in time, I think. Yeah. And especially yourself, the hand, I think my partner can't even listen to it because of how intense it is. And I love it. Like,
do you know the story about that song?
No. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I've heard that there is a story behind it, but I'd like to hear it from the person who wrote the lyrics. It's amazing.
All right. Well, it's very simple. I had the music. I had it for a week, and I had been going over, actually I had 2 songs. And so the one song we ended up doing on our album, which was Buried Deep, Stays Buried Still.
Yep.
That was going to be on the Enter the Chicken album. Then I think Serge wanted it to just be kind of one grouping per project. So like, one song with me, which was fine. And we liked Buried Deep, so we kept it on the way I had been thinking about it. So anyways, we go there and we're going to do that song, The Hand. I don't have a freaking clue what I'm going to sing. I didn't write anything, nothing. We went to Serge's house to record vocals in his studio at his house, and there was an engineer. And so, anyways, I'm sitting in the sort of room next to the console, and there was a magazine, and I pick up a magazine and start looking for pictures, and then I don't know, it was some other picture on an art book or something, but it was just sitting there. And Bucky goes, look at this. And it was a guillotine. And he goes, can you write a song about this? And I just instantly said, yeah, I can. I didn't write it. I didn't write anything down whatsoever. I just looked at it, and I went into the studio, and I thought to myself, what if Buckethead's hand got chopped off in the guillotine, and then he was trying to get it back so he could play with it, so he could play guitar, because it's the hand. He needs his hand. And so then I just turned into this narrative, first person, where I'm like, I've just chopped my own hand off with a guillotine. Why would you put it in there? I mean, I asked the question. It's like, I didn't, how can anything go wrong, right? By putting your hand in a guillotine. And then I thought about, like, if you pick it up, and I said, well, I don't know what I can do with it. I can still pet the dog with it. That got everyone. So I just went completely 100% improv through 2 full takes of the whole song. And when I walked out...
That's it. 2 takes. Done.
That's it. 2 takes.
Oh my God.
And I walked out, and Serge was just like... He was shaking his head. And then his assistant was looking at me. And then he looks at everyone else. Bucket and Dan were there. And he says, how did you do that? Yeah. How did you do that? And I'm just like... And I'm like... I'm still in the zone, so I couldn't really have like a normal conversation at that moment. But I just remember hearing that. It's like, how the hell did he do that?
Yeah.
And Serge was just like, dude, you are the I mean, we played together, right? We played with System of a Down before, so it was
Yeah.
he knew about me, and they liked us. That's why we played with them,
That's
because
amazing.
they dug the Deli Creeps, and so he knew I was a crazy person. So
Yeah.
whatever, it worked out. But I loved it, and then they brought in the opera singer, and holy crap! Like once I heard the finished version, I'm like, oh, that's badass.
Yeah.
You know that bad.
You don't expect it on that song at all, because it comes in, I think, with her, with the and I can't remember the vocalist's name. But
yeah,
and then the riff just rips through, and then your vocals just come in, you know. And now that you say it, it does sound like it was in the moment that captured that one piece of magic at that point in time. And it just all accumulates to this beautiful, almost a mess, but it feels very structured in a strange way. Yeah.
Well, the same thing happened with Found Body. We did that all totally on the fly. There were no lyrics, and we were just at Travis Dickerson's studio, and he said, we're rolling, and those guys started jamming, and I heard the jam, and I'm, oh, that's good, start it again. And then they started the jam again, and I just started singing. And then he came in and did one secondary tracking of guitar, but everything you hear in that song is almost, I think it's only 2 takes.
Wow.
I ran through, and then I ran a second time that was it. And then they
up some vocals and stuff like that here and there.
Yeah, they put it together, and it sounded badass, but it was all just, I mean, I love that. If you can get people who are comfortable, and that's, one of the beautiful things about these modern players is they're like this kid. I mean, they can just punch in, and we track stuff at rehearsal, and it's like he's done it 10 times or 20 times, and it was one take, and you're like, you nail. I mean, rarely does he take more than 3 tries at something.
Yeah.
These guys are just, they're so freaking precise, and like, anyways, it's it's pretty mind blowing. But I do my, I guess I get to improv and be crazy, so.
Yeah. And was that the same sort of stuff when you, like, I know you did, it was only backing vocals on the Praxis album, and you got to meet a whole bunch of, would have met a whole bunch of people for that final Praxis album as well.
I just did the chorus, right? Because I wrote the chorus, I wrote the lyrics, and then, at first I was going to do some stuff on the verses, but then Bill called and said he had what he wanted on the verses and said just focus on the chorus. And so I listened to it, and they told me it was going to be political and sort of like being mournful towards the sort of dystopian direction that everyone was feeling we were in. And so I just thought, I'm one of the things, and it still resonates every day, especially in our modern social media driven political culture, is that I'm just not into anyone, one group or another, telling us all what to think or what to believe. And so those words come from my heart. It's like, you're okay if you kill for the right team, right? That's basically how it rolls in our country. And, I did this whole diatribe in studio with Travis, and we lost it, unfortunately. But I just did this whole thing on, like how I, as the homicidal maniac character, that's no good, right? I'm bad because I want to murder someone for my own gain. But now if we roll in some tanks and bombers for a larger gain, no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. And it was really funny. I just went off on this whole, this diatribe. Well, if I had my own aircraft carrier, I could just do whatever I want at that point, But heaven forbid I slit someone's throat. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah.
And so let's go into the new band, because I've seen some few clips on YouTube. You're on Instagram posting stuff all the time, on Facebook and stuff like that. How did you come across this new group of players, and who was crazy enough to take you up on the offer?
I got to tell you, so I start with Renee. Yeah. And the really shitty thing is that Ryan, the guitar player, he sent me something when he was 15 years old and wanted me to listen to it. And I did listen to some stuff, and I saw some things he did on Instagram. I just didn't realize it was him, right? And then so we somehow he answered. I don't know. I started posting, I need a guitar player, and I think Renee was putting stuff out too, and then this kid shows up, and I don't even know if he was 18 yet by then. I think he was still 17. In fact, yeah, he was. And I'm like, a 17-year-old guitar player? How, this kid's not going to be that good. And then I start watching his stuff, and I'm like, dude, what the hell? I mean, this kid's good, right? And then I realized it's the same kid from 2 years ago. I should have picked him up then. I would, we'd already be a band, like a big band. But anyways, it's then bass player's been the hard part, and it always was. It was with the Deli Creeps. I think we had 5 or 6 bass players in the Deli Creeps.
Yeah, bass players are good.
Yeah,
there's lots of bass players. None of them are good.
Yeah, they're not good, and they're a lot of times they're the least. I don't know, whatever. It seems like, and I'm not talking about the current one that I'm with, but maybe more about the Deli Creeps era. My cousin was Toenail. He was solid for quite a while, so that was great. But sometimes they don't stick around or whatever. But Zetch is the current bass player, and he's really good. He went to Musician Institute in L.A. and then he was living in Arizona, and so the guy had to commit to moving from Arizona to California, which he's done. And I really appreciate that. He's got kind of a crazy mad Celtic look with long ass hair, so it's good. I got a couple guys with long hair, and then it doesn't make me look so bad. I'll just be the kindly gentleman up there singing about horrible things. But and then Renee is he's great. So Renee, Zetch, Ryan, and Bob.
Yeah. And the writing process is just getting into a rehearsal space. I mean, I've listened to at least 3 songs you sort of put out there. Maybe they're just demo tapes and stuff like that, or I think so. Like the Gates, All I Ever Wanted, and Tommy. They're the 3 I've been able to scrounge around and apply for.
All I Ever Wanted was actually a Deli Creep song, but we kind of resurrected it, and he changed the riff a little bit, and I make I don't hide that fact. When I registered it, I added Buckethead's name to just make sure everything's on there. But yeah, that song we only played live I think 4 times, and it was an interesting thing because I had the song in the studio. It used to be Sledgefest, right? And I never really embraced it. It wasn't my favorite, so I thought, well, I'm going to do some new lyrics to this song. And I think at first Bucket was like, man, he didn't like that it was more sort of normal in a way. But then later he did. I mean, after he heard it for a while, and he was like, all right, that is pretty badass. Let's just do it. And so we did it, and so I wanted to play that song again. And then the Gates, I kind of wrote the Gates by myself. And then I got Ryan to play better guitar, play a little more, because I did it with MIDI, and that sucks. And anyways, so I'm like,
a real guitar player play the track,
I'm a real guitar. It's hard, man. I did another song with some other people helping too. What the hell? Why am I spacing on the song?
Tommy?
No. Well, Tommy was a song. The riffs were all written by Ryan before we got together, and then we just we switched it up a little, and then I wrote obviously I write all the lyrics. So
yeah, it's this whole setup kind of reminds me of the second phase of the whole Van Halen thing. Apparently Van Halen was he used to write fragments of songs, and Sammy Hagar used to put them in order.
Yeah.
That sort of, and it sounds like a very similar sort of methodology of songwriting, there's hundreds and hundreds of ideas just plowing through, and you're just making sure that they, not fit a normal, not necessarily a normal structure, but a structure that's allowing the rest of the band to be creative at the same time.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that right now with the 2 of the songs we're finishing. Is that in the old paradigm with Bucket, it was like, here's pieces, and we would kind of just put them together, but it was never natural vocally. Like, songs were never your A B C. I mean, it was very different. And what I find is I like that better. So like these guys, I'm kind of trying to get them comfortable with the fact that no, you go ahead and put the structure the way you want it, and then I'll find my my route, because sometimes it forces me to make these abrupt changes, but that brings out good stuff like Chores. That song had all these weird abrupt sort of switches, and I'm like, oh well, I'll just, and it's almost like I just let it take me emotionally. The phonetics, I might think the phonetics or the and then I'll add the words, or it's the other way around. Sometimes I have all the words written, and then I have to figure out what I'm going to do with them. But either way, I like the I don't know, the organic sort of nature of it, rather than, I hate regular structures. I mean, I don't hate them. Some of the greatest songs are, but yeah, for me, it just is. It fits more with my personality to be a little out to lunch. So
that's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool because it's always interesting to hear how a band or or a musician puts the songs together, because at the end of the day, it's that expression, and and I don't know, if you said you were programming guitars, it's very different once you get a real musician in the room. I've programmed drums for a whole bunch of the stuff that I've done, but then I get my mate in to record me like the drum track. He goes, I changed it completely. It's much better now. And you listen to it and you go, I can see what he's doing. Like, I just don't have the brain to do that.
Right.
And he'll do the same for me. He goes, I want the guitar riff to go, nah, like that. And then I'll come back and go, oh, it sounds better like this and more natural for me. It's kind of sounds like this guy influenced by this. And he'll go, that's better. Because it's that human element to it. And you can hear influences. And I think that's a really important part of music, is not to say like, oh, to show the influences that got you to the place that you are, as well as, make it your own, Put those Queen and Dully Creep songs together to try and make a cool cool riff, that's the important thing.
Yeah, it's interesting too how vocalists and guitar players and drummers, they might not all be hearing, like I know, like one song, the Spongiform song, was so completely done by Ryan. And I didn't want to change anything, because when I listened to it, I'm like, shit, this song's perfect. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't change anything about it structurally. Now I'll just figure out what I'm going to do. But then there's other times when maybe we're putting together pieces, and I'm like, yeah, guys, but you got to think like, I mean, I don't have to like lobby or anything. I mean, we're pretty just like, okay, we'll do this and we'll do this. But like, sometimes you want to figure out, well, that vocal needed to do something, and then, crazy part about this kid is he never thinks about solos. And I've kind of had to say, hey, dude, you're a badass, right? And people who are into badass guitar players like guitar solos. Even not, maybe you don't have to do it the whole song like Yngwie, but yeah. And so now he's getting better at finding the niches for that, and they're also not all the same, which is also how Bucket was. He didn't always put the solo in the same spot of the song, which was great.
Or he completely changed what the riff he was playing over, like going to a different part. I remember like Binge and Grab's a good example of that. The intro to the solo into the solo chords are completely different to the rest of the song, and then it comes back into that almost Van Halen-y going back to Van Halen-y type. I always think of Panama. I think the first time I played it for my partner, she was like, "Isn't it just Panama?" I'm like, "I can hear that now. I can definitely hear that now."
Yeah.
But it's really cool because it's a completely different. It's the Dally Creeps version of Panama, which is awesome.
Yeah. I think Shadows. I mean, that's one song that because we never recorded it for the album.
Yep.
I still want to do that song, and I would, I have mixed emotions about some of the songs being outside of Buckethead and I, like I was a little bummed when he did Random Killing with Bill and turned it into I Come in Peace, because like that had been my baby. Like if I were gonna look at the entire catalog of Deli Creep songs, and you said, what's the one song that's like your baby? Even though I'm not a murderer, like the emotion and the way that I approached that song, it felt like my my peak, right?
Yeah.
That was my holy shit when we walk off the stage after that song, because that's what we used to end with, right?
Yeah,
That's the bring the house down. Because what do you do after you've just narrated choking the life out of someone and really seem to enjoy it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I don't have hard feelings about it. I just feel like, well, there's some things that should kind of remain in a way, like, like, I don't know, like it's special.
And
And
yeah,
so Shadows always felt that way to me, because
yeah.
he and I wrote that song, and it was like, it was when we hadn't decided exactly what we were going to be. Like, we wrote that before songs got crazier and crazier, right?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like this melodic, and yeah, it was like a rock song. And
Yeah.
but I would love to freaking play it again. So at least we could play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. And like you said, Binge and Grab. Holy crap, I love that song. It's just funny.
And it's so, as a guitar player, it's so fun to play. It's so tricky in certain ways, but so fun to play. And
yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another question obviously is when the Australian tour is happening, because I may be the only person in the audience, but
yeah, that's cool though. You know what, we're working on getting more happening,
Yeah.
and so it's been hard just because of different circumstances, and we're all we don't live super close to each other.
Yeah.
Like Renee's all the way on the coast, and then I'm sort of in Claremont, where I used to live with Buckethead, and then everyone else, like the other guys, way down south, bass player, and the guitar player's in the middle. But anyways, it's harder to get together than it was with the Deli Peeps. We spent every day in practice. We practice 4 or 5 times a week. So now it takes more time, and so, but I really think we're starting to really get stuff done, which is good, and then next we'll play again.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we want to play the new songs, so, because they're badass. Like, the dude, he's a badass guitar player, and his riff precision is more like modern, like some of the Animals as Leaders kind of, he's able to be very precision and, Meshuggah kind of heaviosity if you want, and then still we got to mix it back to me, right? It can't be one of those bands. That's not in my nature as a singer. But so we're trying to find, and I feel like as long as the topic of the song takes me somewhere weird emotionally, then I'll find the right tenor that I'm going for with the singing. So, but I love it. Anyways,
it's so good
I will get to Australia. All right, we'll get to Europe and we'll get to Australia. So, yeah, don't worry. And by then, maybe 10 people will know, and
That's right.
I'll
tell 10 people. That's it.
Hey, if we could tour with someone, then that would help.
That's amazing.
So anyway,
and I think,
in fact, trying to get a Bungle show, that would be the best thing.
That would be amazing.
As
I heard, weren't they getting back together for a little bit to do a couple of random shows here and there?
Now they're playing 3 in LA, so I'm like, come on! But I don't know how to get a hold of anybody. I haven't talked to anybody in years.
Just give them a call. Just send them a tweet or something like that. It's got to be some sort of way.
Yeah, I'll try. I mean, we've been trying. Whatever.
That's awesome. And sort of been saving. And how's your relationship with Buckethead now? Because he's obviously doing his whole massive Pike series and this and that. And if you don't want to talk about it too much, obviously it's all good. But
you know what? I don't mind talking about it. It's not with this, like, because in all reality, it's slowed down in the last 6 months, I think, because enough people have seen things that have been written and whatnot. But for a while, I was like, oh my God, every other day I'm being asked about Buckethead, and I'm like, listen, here's the deal. I haven't even spoken to him in, oh God, it's, I think 8 years, 6, 7, at least 6 years. And I understand one thing, and that is that when we see each other, it's like a forest fire, right? I mean, like we don't not get along.
Yeah.
When we don't see each other for a couple of years or whatever back then, when we did see each other, it was like everything's the way it was. We're just kind of naturally, like, we're like good friends naturally. But then I don't think, he didn't want it to take him off the route that he's on, and he likes what he's doing, the way he's doing it, and I don't blame him. I mean, it's working for him, and
Yeah.
I'm sure if he were being completely honest, he would say the shows we played were probably his most, or among the most fun things he ever did, and that he would probably do that if that were,
The viable
if it were a
option.
question of the only show that he could play for the rest of time.
Yeah.
But it's okay, and but I don't I miss the not the music more. I miss the we were friends. Like we
Yeah.
were friends before we were in a band together. And so I miss that part of it. And I'm sad because his like where I knew him in Claremont and with all the family and stuff, that's all changed so much. But yeah, and you know what? Flat out, he's a really good dude. He's one of, if not the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And so anything that takes him in the direction that he goes in is not malicious towards me. I'm sure that he wished it could be, but I just think he knows if we hung out, then pretty soon we'd be, like playing a show or something, and then and it just gets him out of his element. So, anyways, yeah, but he's a good dude, and it's been good with Renee because Renee knew him also, and so we have some common ground there, and like it just keeps us all on the sort of real, and not they don't need to glorify, they don't need that tie-in where it's like, oh, because this was a Buckethead thing. They like the music, and we all like the music. So when we play it, it's like we're doing this because it's badass. The dude wrote some nasty shit on guitar. He's a freak,
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm sure I'll talk to him before I die. I feel that way. Like I'm sure the day will come. But and I was worried for all that time when he was hurting with his back and and it didn't look good there for a while. And then when I heard about the heart thing, I'm like, I expected it would be me. I have health issues, but I'm getting better. Losing weight helps. But I never thought he'd be the one to say he had a heart problem.
Yeah.
Holy moly. So I'm hoping that's all good.
That's
But
right.
yeah.
Well, you never know. One day, I might see both of you in Australia, which would be inconceivable to me, mate. Like I've always said one of the reasons was to come and if the Deli Creeps were still, I think back in the day I said if the Deli Creeps were playing in America and I could afford it and I was at university or high school at the time doing that sort of stuff, I would have loved to been able to do it. But hopefully in the future I'm able to see both and experience the stuff that got me into this weirder, crazier, more insane side of music. And,
there you go,
they say never meet your idols, but this, I gotta say, Bob, has been one of the most exciting, fun, and craziest things I've ever been able to do. So I want to absolutely thank you. It's been a long time in the making to get you on the show.
Awesome, yeah.
And
but can you plug one thing?
You can plug. I was gonna let you plug whatever you want, mate. Go for it.
All right. Well, I gotta say, I want everyone to go to stockyardskinners.com and then click on the Join Herd page and put in their email and all that, because it's not just about live, but just a way to reach out to people. We're gonna have merchandise and all that stuff, but it's also just to make sure people hear the music,
Absolutely.
And in fact, on that note, I'm still sort of perplexed why the Deli Creeps aren't on Spotify, but whatever.
Well, luckily I have a physical copy, mate. That's the.
There you go. Well, I got about 100 of those if somebody needs one. So
absolutely.
Yeah, they're just sitting. I like every now and then I'll give one to someone who says, "Oh my God," or I read something on Facebook and they say they can't find it, and I reach out. But anyways, So thanks, man. I appreciate this.
And make sure you're on on Instagram, you're on Facebook as well. So make sure you follow Bob on there, all his music projects and stuff like that. That's how I got in contact with you, and hopefully more people we've shown people that may not have listened to you before some exposure to some of the stuff you've done, your incredible career, all the new stuff that you've done. Incredibly lucky to be able to play and continue to write music, and I hope to hear a whole bunch more stuff from you in the future, man.
You will.
It's awesome.
Crazy stuff.
Thank you. Right. Yeah, thank you so much. Look, I'll just do my little outro for the show. And then that's it.
All right.
So for all the lovely people who have been listening to the show, for all your wanking needs, make sure you go and follow us on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you'd like to send us some hate mail, a death threat, or a rant, record it on your phone and email us at weonlydoontakepodcast@gmail.com. Bob, like I said, incredible pleasure. Not in my wildest dreams would I thought that this would actually occur. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Thank you, Turch.
Thank you. And we will see all you lovely people next Thursday.
Cool, man.
Man, incredible.
Awesome. So that's it.
I'm sure there's so many more stories, but maybe we'll have to, once you start touring and doing more stuff, man, I'd love to have you back.
Right on. All right.
Awesome,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
Go have some more time with the family, have some dinner.
Right
and
on.
I'm sure we'll be in contact soon. I'll let you know when this comes out.
Okay, cool.
Thank
Enjoy
you
Saturday.
Thank you so much.
Right on, man.
Bye.
Bye.